Good morning, everybody. Woo! Well, everybody's awake. I'm Joyce Parkin, a member of the board here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. Whether you're on Zoom or in the sanctuary, we're glad you're with us this morning. No matter how old or how young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify, and whomever you love, please know that you're welcome here. And we're going to do something a little bit different today to try to bring our Zoom watchers and our congregation in here together. So we're going to do a little thing. That camera there is where you need to be looking. On the count of three, 1, 2, 3, we're going to look at that camera and we're going to wave good morning to our friends on Zoom. Ready? Are you ready? Okay. Let's, fingers crossed, hope this works. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Oh, that was lovely. That was so lovely. Okay. Well, we're also happy to welcome back our beloved accompanist, Diane Carsten-Pelak. We've missed you this summer, Diane, and we're delighted to hear that you'll be our accompanist in the coming year. Our hymn leader today is Meagan Pitluck-Schmitt, and thank both of you for providing the music for today's service. Now it's time for announcements. Today, it's an exciting day for lots of reasons. We kick off our 2024-25 programs for children and teens. Children K through 7th grade will meet after the time for all ages. Our 7th through 12th graders, that doesn't seem right, K through 7, it must be K through 6? Yeah, thank you. Children K through 6th grade meet after the time for all ages, and our 7th through 12th graders will meet from 11:15 to 12:30 for pizza and activity planning, and no adults need to come to try to get an extra slice of pizza. The 7th through 12th graders are also invited to a Dungeons and Dragons game from 1 to 5 today. If you haven't RSVP'd for D&D yet, please see Linda Weaver or Randy Newton to make sure there's still room for everyone who wants to play. No adults allowed. Now here's an important announcement from our Social Justice and Action team. So, UUCR wants to be a good trouble congregation. What does that mean? You can find out after next Sunday's service on September 15th from 11:15 to noon. Please come to see and hear how you can help to save our democracy. And we're fortunate to bring you another opportunity for involvement at the same time and place. There will be a political action workshop with the League of Women Voters. This workshop will address the threats to our democracy in this election year and show the ways we're working to encourage get out the vote efforts for November. So next Sunday, please take advantage of these opportunities to voice our UU values. We can all do something. The next issue of the UUCR Connection, our e-blast newsletter, is scheduled for September 12th. If you have any news you'd like to share in that edition, please send it to Harry, UUCR's office manager, on or before September 10th, and Harry's email is admin@uureston.org. And now Reverend Aileen has a special announcement to share.
On Saturday and Sunday, September 28th, 29th, there will be a nationwide UU Climate Justice Revival. Hundreds of congregations around the country will be participating. In our area, there will be a collaboration among local congregations, so all activities for Saturday will be at the River Road congregation. Please contact me if you are interested in forming carpools to go. On Sunday, we will be doing a special worship service, and we'll also have some climate justice-related activities immediately following the service. I hope you will be able to participate. Thank you.
Now let's center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. Let's enter our time of worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude.
Good morning and welcome to UCR. I'm Reverend Aileen Fitzke, and it is my honor to serve this congregation as its minister. Our opening words this morning, "We Gather to Draw a Wider Circle," by Gretchen Haley. In a world that feeds on moral outrage, we are here to cultivate moral courage. In a time that prizes picking sides, we gather to draw a wider circle. And in a culture that teaches us to get for what we give and to ask, what's in it for me, we come to practice generosity and remember that we are all in this together. In the midst of life's bitterness, we choose to sing and give thanks, to laugh together and to be keepers of beauty, to offer a place of belonging for all who come, in gladness and in pain, to resist the push to the next moment and the next, to slow down, to breathe more deeply, to feel a part of something greater. For this hour and in this space, let us be the change we wish to see. Come, let us worship together.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 346, Come Sing a Song With Me. The words are in the order of service or online in the chat box. Please stand in body or spirit as you are willing and able. Thank you.
Today's words for the chalice lighting are by Dr. Rebecca A. Savage. May our faith be renewed and reignited. We light our flaming chalice each week with a simple spark to make holy our time together. With this flame, may our highest intentions be refreshed. With this flame, may we remember who we are and whose we are. With this flame, may our faith be renewed and reignited to guide our journey. Amen, and may it be so.
UCR has a beloved tradition of singing our covenant together each Sunday. The words are in the order of service. They should be on a screen behind me, and they will be in Zoom. If you are visiting for the first time, please accept this as our blessing to you.
Spirit. Now is the time for all ages. So if we have anyone who is feeling young of body or young of spirit this morning, you may come forward. And if you want to sit wherever you are just fine. So good to see everyone this morning. I wonder if you have welcomed anyone new into your lives recently or been welcomed, perhaps at school, in activities, or here at UUCR. There are many stories about welcome, and we have two today. The first is from a time and place when food and water could be hard to find, and a traveler's lives could depend on the hospitality or welcome of someone they did not know. It comes from Genesis 18 in the Bible. And according to this story, an old man named Abraham sat outside his tent, the place where he was living. And he saw 3 men come near him. He ran to them and bowed down and said, "My Lord, don't pass by your servant. Come, sit by this tree and rest, and let us bring water to wash your feet." And he and his wife hurried to prepare a meal with their best food, and they served it to them. After the strangers had eaten, they called to Abraham, and one said, "Surely I will return to you, and your wife, even though she is very old, will have a baby." Explanations of the stories often say that those strangers were angels, or even God, perhaps, and they rewarded Abraham and Sarah for their good deed. A later story is attributed to Father Francis Dorf of the Norbertine community in the state of New Mexico. And according to this tale, a monastery had fallen onto hard times. There were only 5 monks or religious leaders living there at the time, and they were all over 70 years old. The abbot worried about his monastery, and he went to visit a friend, a rabbi or Jewish leader, and he asked them for advice. The rabbi said, "I know how it is. The spirit of the people seemed to have left, and very few people attend our synagogue now." The 2 friends talked for a while, and when the abbot was ready to leave, he asked once more, "Don't you have some advice that could help us save the monastery?" And the rabbi said, "I'm sorry, I have none. The only thing I can tell you is the Messiah is one of you." The abbot went back to the monastery and told the monks what the rabbi had said, and they were amazed. They knew that the Messiah was the most important person, and to think that the Messiah was one of them, they began to talk like this. "I wonder who that might be. Of course it's the abbot. He has led us so well for all of these years. On the other hand, it might be Brother Thomas. He's a very holy person who prays and reads the Bible all the time. It couldn't possibly be Brother Elrod. He is always complaining. And yet, he's very wise. It couldn't be Brother Philip. He's so quiet. And yet, he seems to magically appear anytime you need him. It couldn't possibly be me. I know that. But suppose it was. Could I be that important?" As the monks thought about this, they began to see each other differently and themselves. and they began to treat each other with great respect, just as they would the Messiah. The atmosphere in the monastery began to be filled with welcome and kindness, and visitors could feel that when they entered. There had always been people who dropped by because of the beauty of the mountains that surrounded the monastery, but now they came and stayed for that atmosphere of welcome. And after a while, one, and then another, and another, asked to join the monastery, and the religious community grew and thrived. That's the end of our story for today. But we will continue to talk about that kind of welcome, seeing the other person as a God, an angel, a Messiah, or a dearly loved person. We'll talk about that in the services and religious education today and throughout the month. We'll now sing the children out with Go With Joy, which will be projected here and is in your order of service.
It is now the time in our service when we share our joys and sorrows, so that no one ever has to hold them alone. If you are joining us remotely this morning, you may wish to light a real or virtual candle wherever you are, as members of the in-person congregation place stones in the water. If those of you at home would like to share what is in your heart today in the congregational chat on the screen, please write to all attendees, and please remember that what you share will be public. Those at home may then read the joys and concerns shared in the chat and enter into your own time of reflection and prayer as we listen to our meditation music. And I invite those in the sanctuary with joys and concerns to please come forward and put stones in the water. us be one in prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates our creation, we are grateful for this community, which is with us in times of both joy and sorrow. We hold in our hearts this morning all who are facing any hardship or difficulty, those who are grieving or facing illness or disability in themselves, their friends, or their loved ones. In particular, this morning, we hold in our hearts and prayers the victims and families of the school shooting in Georgia, and for a lasting and just peace in the Middle East. For all these, we light this candle. And finally, a joy. Where's Greg Ratta? Oh, there he is in the back. I just want to publicly thank Greg Ratta for taking over as interim office manager after Beth left last spring. He made our lives so much easier than they might have been in the transition from Beth and to Harry. So, big round of applause for Greg. Thank you. Let us take a moment of silence.
Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. The second Sunday of each month is our dedicated offering to an organization chosen by the Social Justice Social Action Committee. All of today's offerings, except for pledge payments, which should be clearly marked, will go to the Refugee, Asylum Seeker, and Immigrant Subcommittee of UUCR's Social Action Social Justice Committee, or RASI for short. RASI provides support to sustain displaced people identified as refugees by the United Nations High Commission of Refugees. RASI's support includes funding, food, clothing, transportation, and other essentials to welcome and help families acclimate to Northern Virginia. Members also provide pro bono legal service and support to our immigrant neighbors seeking legal asylum. In April 2023, a RASI-supported mother and her children were sworn in as citizens of the United States. The RASI subcommittee has expanded to assist 3 Central American families with essential support and pro bono legal services before the Immigration Court. In June 2023, 1 Central American mother and her child were granted asylum and are on their path toward permanent residence and United States citizenship. If you're with us online, you can make your donation to RASI at the link in the chat and on your order of service by entering your donation in the Charity of the Month donation box on the online form. Here in the sanctuary, you can write a check to UUCR with RASI, that's R-A-S-I, in the memo line and drop it in the offering basket. Well, you can put cash in the offering basket too. And any donation can be made by check and then mailed to the church. Thank you for your generous support of this important community service to help our neighbors.
Welcome everybody back from all your travels this summer. Hopefully you got rest and took care of yourselves and had some fun. Several years ago, I was chaperoning a youth conference. We drove on a cold January Friday night to the UU congregation of Schenectady, New York. 4 teens, 2 chaperones. The youth con, as they are called, ran from Friday night to Sunday morning when we had to vacate the space so that the Sunday morning service could happen. Youth, as well as their adult chaperones, were placed in pre-specified groups when we got there that we were to remain in as our primary groups for the weekend. All programming for the weekend was planned by the hosting youth, the youth of the hosting congregation. Having watched in my home congregation in Ithaca, I knew the work and planning that went into these weekends. The first morning of workshops, I found myself in a beautiful room with large windows filled with adult and youth. The first thing we were to do was say our name and our pronouns. This was the first time I had ever been asked to give my pronouns. And most of the adults there were baffled by this practice. The youth explained it to us. They said there were several non-binary and trans youth attending, and it would be respectful and welcoming for us to use the correct pronouns for them. It was also one of the first times that I was introduced to the concept of they as a singular pronoun for those who identified as neither he or she. All of this was something I had never thought of or been introduced to, but it made immediate sense to me. It felt good that the youth in our congregations were taking the lead on this issue and that they were teaching the adults something new. And since that time, many of our congregations have adopted the practice of placing pronouns on our name tags. See, I have mine. To welcome, as a welcoming gesture, to let people know we understand. To be truly welcoming to all is very difficult because sometimes we are not aware of what particular people need to feel welcome in our spaces. A few weeks ago, I noticed a woman in a wheelchair come in and not have a place to comfortably be during the service. Now, we usually have a cutout in the back for a wheelchair, but that particular morning, we had forgotten to take the chairs out of the cutout. And I felt really bad. Now, to be fair, we've been doing a lot of accessibility studies here in the congregation to make it fully wheelchair accessible. And we've been making adjustments to our building to make sure that this is always so, that we are always accessible. But sometimes we fall short. And there are other forms of disability that are not as obvious. Are we accessible to those with hearing or vision loss? For those with neurodivergence who process the world in various different ways? Do we try and make sure they are accommodated and feel welcome when they are with us? How do we welcome children? Do we stare at them or their parents if they make too much noise? Are they encouraged to participate in the service? Do we provide childcare, adequate childcare for all of our events? Do we look for new congregants who are just like us and are willing to adapt to our church culture? Or do we actively seek those who question, who make us uncomfortable, who are different and whose differences allow us to question who we are and who we would like to become? In their book, Radical Hospitality, the authors Father Daniel Homan and Lonnie Collins-Pratt ask, who is really welcome in our congregations? Are we looking for those who come and bring us something? As a church, have we become accustomed to our memberships in what others can give to us? We actively seek out productive, contributing members of our society. But radical hospitality calls us to search for the lost ones, those who have nothing to give us, but who instead need something from us. They may or may not even be aware that they have something to give in return. Our Time for All Ages story this morning looks at the way in which dwindling faith communities full of anxiety turns itself around. It turns itself around and begins to grow because members begin to see each other as sacred and worthy of respect. And not only does it not dwindle, it begins to grow and thrive, and more people want to join the community because the people in the community treat each other with kindness and as though each might be the embodiment of the divine. In 2017, the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change began a study of not just how we welcome people into our congregations, but how we continue to make them feel welcome once they have joined. In 2020, they released the report Widening the Circle of Concern and sent it out to all congregations. In the report, they point out many ways that our congregations are welcoming and many ways that we may fall short as we welcome others to our communities. When I was working at the Binghamton, New York congregation as a ministerial intern, we were part of a group of predominantly white churches who were partnering and in dialogue with predominantly Black churches in our community. The clergy of the different churches met and planned events and activities to facilitate dialogue among the churches. And one of the activities they did was to have the Black clergy walk through one of the buildings of the predominantly white church. Now, there was nobody in the building. And they report back what made them feel comfortable or uncomfortable about the space. This is what they said, and I thought it was very telling. They said, all the pieces of the art in the space, sacred art and others, only depicted white people. There was no art that depicted any people of color in the entire church. I think about this all the time. What did just the aesthetics of our building tell us about who we welcome into our spaces? In Widening the Circle of Concern, the Commission notes that when we are hospitable to one group, when we are not hospitable to one group, for example, people of color, others who experience marginalization notice, and our sacred spaces become unwelcoming to them as well. I talked about noticing last week, how we can forget to look around us and notice what is already there, and that we have missed, and what we have missed because we haven't been paying attention. But alternately, what is not present that should be? There's this old joke in which an old fish approaches two younger fish and tells them they need to be aware of the quality of the water in which they are swimming. And the two younger fish swim away, and one asks the other, "What is water?" We can normalize particular culture and norms over time so that we do not notice when they become problematic. They just become the water we're swimming in. And it could be that though they worked at one time for the community in the past, they may no longer work for the community that we have become. Like my experience with pronouns at the youth conference, I didn't know I was not being wholly inclusive and welcoming of particular members of that community because I was oblivious to the need. But once I learned I could be more welcoming, I could notice the water. Being more welcoming is about learning and changing. The more we know, the more we are able to adapt. We need to prepare ourselves for the reality of change. We need to prepare ourselves for the reality of an increasingly diverse world that is not just out there, but is within our congregations. We had our board retreat yesterday, and one of the subjects that came up was the idea of belonging. What enables us to feel like we belong? And our facilitator, Reverend Kimberly, gave us a contrast between belonging and fitting in. Fitting in means that a person has to give up part of who they are to find a place in a group. Belonging means that someone is able to bring their whole self, knowing that the group accepts them for who they are. Our offering song performed so beautifully tells us to draw the circle wide, the circle of belonging, the circle of moral concern, the circle of welcoming, until eventually all are encompassed in our circles of who matters. Let us create that place of belonging for all who enter here, a circle of belonging that holds all in its embrace. Amen, and blessed be.
Our closing hymn today is number 360, Here We Have Gathered. Please rise in body or spirit and sing as you are willing.
Our benediction this morning is by Frederick E. Gillis. May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always.
Before we extinguish the chalice, I was asked to remind you that after the service today is Science Sunday. Mike, you want to just say, where's Mike? What the topic is?
Great women, astronomers, and physicists.
Okay, great women, astronomers, and physicists. That's a good melange. And it starts at 11:30? 20 minutes after the end of the service. Just grab coffee and a donut, and then come back for what will be another smashing Science Sunday. Now, extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For our postlude today, we're going to sing Draw the Circle Wide one more time, and we invite you all to sing along with us. If you don't know the words, feel free to hum or ooh, or just clap along with us. If you're a baby, you can babble, or just stare quietly. So thank you.
for joining us here this morning. Greet your neighbor, someone maybe you haven't talked to in a while, and have a lovely, lovely afternoon.